Hello everyone and welcome to my live stream. Here I will be answering your questions on selective mutism based on my journey with this disorder for the past 4 years. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to leave them in the comments box below. And I hope to hear from you guys soon. I thought I would start off by sharing my journey of what it's been like having selective mutism for the past 4 years. And if at any time you have any questions or comments, please comment in the comment section below and I will answer them live. So I was diagnosed with selective mutism when I was 14 years old. But I believe that it really started when I was in grade 7. I started to notice that I became more shy and started isolating myself a lot more. And I began to lose friends as well. The thing that really kicked off the selective mutism or made it even worse was going to high school. Now, in my middle school, there were only 250 kids, and it was very small and everyone knew everyone. So it was really easy for me to just be myself. But once I moved to high school and began having more people around me, it started to become a lot scarier for me and a lot more difficult for me to speak. So again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I see someone is trying to post a message. I hope everyone could get on okay. This is my first time doing this, and I'm hoping for the least amount of technical difficulties possible. So the first question is, I was wondering if you have any pets and if you think that pets help with anxiety. I do have a pet. I actually recently adopted a greyhound, and his name is Finn. And I adopted Finn about a year ago, actually. And he came up from the United States in Florida. And I wrote a blog post about Finn, but basically he has a lot of anxiety as well, and that was really helpful for me personally because seeing a dog with anxiety and being able to relate to him really helped me find within myself what my anxiety was like, and I was able to relate to him basically. And that's why I think that pets can help with anxiety. Not only are they there for you all the time and they're non-judgmental, but for me personally, they were someone I could relate to. Now, Finn is another question is, what do you think the most helpful thing another person can do to support someone with SM? I think that the most important thing to remember when helping someone with SM is to never give up on them. I've had so many people give up on me, and it really, really does not help with other conversations, because people with SM have to build a certain amount of trust when they are going to interact, before they are going to interact with someone. And this trust level can be built through many different things. But for me personally, I build trust through people interacting with me and knowing that they will never say anything rude to me or something that will inhibit me from being able to speak. Now, so that's what I think the most important thing, definitely. I was recently in the hospital and I found that the nurses there were unsure of how to interact with me. And what I did was I came up with a tips list that they could read that showed them different ways to interact with me. And another thing that I put on that list was that patience is extremely important, because someone with selective mutism is not going to just come out and start speaking just like everyone else. It takes a lot of time and a lot of patience for them to start speaking. And if you are patient with them, they can build that trust level up and potentially start speaking to you. But it's really important that you are understanding of their condition, that you've done some research into what may and may not help them, and that you are patient and understanding, and most importantly, that you do not give up. The next question is, do you find it easy to speak to your family about what you were going through? And how can parents help best? I find it somewhat easy to speak to my parents about what I'm going through because they're the most understanding people, because they see me on a day-to-day basis. I also find it relatively easy to express what I'm going through on the internet, because for me personally, being able to express myself on the internet and help other people is really beneficial for me, and it helps me overcome my anxiety around other people. And how can parents help best? I would say that parents have to be an advocate for their child. Especially with young children, it can be difficult for them to express what is really going on, and it's important that they do their research and understand what their child is going through. And this can be done through a variety of ways, such as support groups here on Facebook. I personally have found support groups here on Facebook to be miraculous, and there's so many parents out there and teens advocating for this disorder. Not only advocating, but if they have questions, they can reach out to other parents. So I think that if possible, you should join one of those support groups and ask questions there, because it can be so frustrating for parents, especially, to see their child go from one extreme to the other, because most children with selective mutism are extremely talkative in social settings. Not in social settings. Most children with selective mutism are extremely talkative at home and not in social settings. So it can be very difficult for parents to see that switch from one extreme to another. So if you go on an online support group and share your concerns, and instead of projecting them out towards your kid, then you will be more likely to find success, and your child will find less pressure to please you or to speak just because you are going through a rough time and in order to please you. The next question is, what do you think is the biggest misconception about selective mutism? I think that the biggest misconception about selective mutism is that children, teens, and adults with this disorder are choosing to speak, or choosing not to speak. And this misconception has affected me a lot. At my old school, I was known as the girl who didn't speak, and it puts a lot of pressure on the person with selective mutism because they know that they're not choosing not to speak, but people assume that they are, and this can label them as rude, maybe judgmental. They could be ridiculed for something that they have no control over. And to add on to that question, have you ever had someone judgmental towards you because of it? And honestly, most people that I come across who have never met me before have been judgmental towards me because of my selective mutism. And just an example, I was in the hospital this past 3 weeks, and I had a doctor, and he explained to me that if I did not speak to him, he would put me on medication that causes weight gain. And that, of course, is not something that you would say to someone with selective mutism, because it can cause them to regress once they feel that pressure and expectation for you to speak. So it's extremely important that you make sure that your child understands that there's no expectation for them to speak, there's no pressure for them to speak, and that they can speak when they are ready. Another question is, what sort of things do other people do that may heighten the anxiety of someone with selective mutism? I've experienced many things that heighten my anxiety, and there's a lot of things that people can do that heighten the anxiety of someone with selective mutism, but on the other side, there's also a lot of things that people can do to lower the anxiety of someone with selective mutism. Some of the things that I've experienced have been people ridiculing me for being quiet or pointing out the fact that I am quiet, saying things such as, "Why are you so quiet?" Stuff like that. Just, it draws attention to the fact that you are quiet, and it really draws attention to the person with selective mutism. Another thing that I found heightened my anxiety was when people pointed out the fact that I was smiling, or if I smiled at a certain joke or something like that. I found that it brought a lot of attention to me. So basically, things that heightened my anxiety were things that brought a lot of attention to me and the fact that I couldn't speak. The next question is, are you fully recovered, and what is the process of your current past recovery? I am not currently recovered from selective mutism. If I were to step outside of my house right now, I would be completely mute. But I'm able to do this interview because I have practiced doing this many times. I go to school 45 minutes away. I go to school 1 hour and 15 minutes away from my home, and that requires me to do a lot of Skype sessions with psychologists and my violin teacher. And I was completely mute around those people. Until I started doing the Skype sessions. I find that face-to-face interaction actually is a lot worse than doing something like this where I can interact with you guys live, but not have the expectation of eye contact, speech, and stuff like that. 3 months ago, I developed depression on top of selective mutism and severe anxiety, which had a serious impact on my recovery. I was actually hospitalized because of it, and which was not a good experience at all. And the process of my current and past recovery basically included a lot of different treatment techniques. So, different treatment techniques that I've tried have been cognitive behavioral therapy. I've been in cognitive behavioral therapy for, I would say, around 4 years now. So I know all of the techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's just difficult to implicate them when you are experiencing such high levels of anxiety. So I would suggest that if you are currently trying cognitive behavioral therapy, or if it's something you're interested in, you really need to lower your level of anxiety before you can implement the techniques, or it's not going to be beneficial at all. I have also tried naturopathy, different naturopathic remedies, and I am also trying different medications. I've tried Effexor, Prozac, Zoloft, Pristiq, clonazepam, and the last one is Abilify. And really, everyone is different, but for me, the only medication that I really saw a change in was Abilify. So medication obviously doesn't change you, and it obviously won't make things 100% better, but I found that it lowered my anxiety to an extent that I was able to try the different techniques such as cognitive behavioral therapy. The next question is, Hi Lauren, thanks for doing this. I think you are so brave. Sometimes I struggle because I feel like I am two different people, the SM me and the real me. Is that just me, or do other people feel that way too? I'm trying to be more open about my SM, but it's difficult to reveal the hidden person sometimes. I struggle with this a lot because with SM you really are two different people. There's the talkative part of you that wants to be with people, you want to interact, you want to do what everyone else around you is doing, get a job, have friends, go to school and be able to interact. But at the same time, there's a part inside of you that is closed off and can't speak and shy. So I really struggled with that because I didn't want people to see the shy, quiet, nervous part of me because it was not who I really was, and I wanted people to see the real me. In doing these different things such as my blog and live video chats, I'm able to show people the real me without having to use my voice, which has really given me an outlet for being able to relieve some of my anxiety and showing people that yes, I am quiet, and yes, I don't talk in certain social situations, but that's not who I really am. who I really am is this compassionate, kind person who loves to talk and loves to be around people, but just has an anxiety disorder that finds that type of thing extremely difficult. The next question is, what do you find is the most awkward or difficult situation to be in while mute? I find that the most difficult situation to be in for me is anything to do with school. School is obviously an environment where speech is expected, and when speech is expected, it obviously brings someone who isn't able to speak, it brings their anxiety level up a lot. And for me, the part of school that was most difficult for me is we did these interactions, group interactions, where you're being marked on your ability to participate and to communicate with others in the room. And everyone is so eager to participate and eager to communicate because it's part of it's part of the classroom culture. And I was unable to do any of that. So I felt that it brought attention to me because I wasn't communicating while everyone was, so it kind of singled me out. And so I would say anything to do with group communication or school in general was definitely the most difficult situation to be in while mute. The next question is, what do you do if someone who isn't aware of your SM asks you a question and you can't speak? Now, I find this situation to be particularly difficult for me, and I'm assuming a lot of people with selective mutism. I honestly, when I can't speak, when I'm mute, I freeze completely. I can't look at them, I can't shake my head yes or no, I can't do anything. So I know that some people may be able to pass a card that says I have selective mutism and it explains the disorder a little bit, but for me, I just completely freeze. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about people giving up on me and people not knowing what to do, because I like to look at it as the observer, the person who is trying to communicate with me. It must be extremely awkward to be in that situation and to have put someone in such paralyzing anxiety. So right now, I'm unable to do anything when someone asks me a question and I can't speak. But if you are able to pass a card or a note or write something down, I would definitely suggest doing that. Thank you guys for all your questions so far. I'm really enjoying interacting with you guys, and please pass on any other questions that you have. I usually get a lot of questions on changing schools and whether or not that can help with someone's selective mutism. And for me, that was the driving factor in my recovery. I was in a public school with 1,200 kids, and that really set off my selective mutism and made it very, very difficult for me to speak. In fact, I was mute for 2 years in the school until I decided to change to a private school that was 1 hour and 15 minutes away from my house. Oh, we have a question. I was wondering if you have any other anxieties apart from SM, such as social anxiety. Yes, I actually developed social anxiety before I developed selective mutism, but I had anxiety from the age of 4 years old. When I was 4 years old, I developed a phobia of being kidnapped, and that phobia stayed with me until I was 13 years old. It would get so bad that I couldn't sleep because I kept hearing noises in my house, and I actually had to stay in my parents' room and sleep there. I slept in their closet until I was 12 or 13 years old. It was really bad. And then in around grade 7, I developed social anxiety for no particular reason. I think it just developed on its own. And the social anxiety really brought on the selective mutism because I started to get a lot more anxious in social situations. And when I was that anxious, people would avoid me because they didn't know how to interact with me, and they didn't know why I wasn't talking as much as I used to. So when I switched from middle school to the high school with 1,200 kids, all of my friends had left me, and there I was, completely mute, outside of my home, and I didn't have any support, which was very difficult. And I believe that people with selective mutism need a support system and need people to be there for them, or else it's very difficult to get better. Thank you, that was a great question. But I think that it's very common for kids to be very anxious and shy before they develop selective mutism, from what I've read and experienced myself. So when I changed schools and went to this boarding school, which was 1 hour and 15 minutes away from my house, people were able to see the part of me that they didn't see before. And this was really amazing for me because it was like it was locked up inside of me and I wasn't able to project it outwards to other people. And once people got to see the part of me that I've always dreamed of them seeing, it really was a confidence booster for me. And it really showed me that, yes, I can do this. Yes, SM can be overcome. And once I transferred to that school, I was talking just like I'm talking right now. And I met some amazing friends, and I could join in all activities. And as some of you may have seen from my blog, I did a speech in front of the entire school about selective mutism. The only thing that really stopped me from, or made me regress, I guess, was the development of acute depression. And I cannot tell you why I developed depression. I don't think it was anything to do with my environment or any events that happened in my life, but it really triggered the anxiety to come back, and I became more and more quiet again, and eventually had to be pulled out of school because I wasn't functioning at all. Another question is, how can someone with anxiety find the strength to make friends and connect with others when they've had a lot of rejection in the past? This is a great question, and I still struggle with this every single day. For me, it's very difficult to connect with other people or approach other people because I have been rejected by so many people in the past. And I think it's important to acknowledge that and just to understand that yes, there are going to be some people that don't understand your anxiety and that don't understand selective mutism, but there are also going to be people out there who are there to support you and understand what you are going through to the extent that they can without actually experiencing the disorder. So that really got me through, knowing that people are there for me and that they're going to accept me, despite the fact that I was rejected so many times. The next question is, was it hard to overcome SM? And also, how did others react hearing you for the first time? I actually still have selective mutism, and it's still very difficult for me to speak outside of my house. For me, my selective mutism manifests itself in a way that it only occurs in my city. So if I were to drive, say, an hour and a half away, I would be able to speak comfortably outside. But if I were to go outside of my house right now, I would be completely mute. So I wouldn't say that I have totally overcome SM, but it was extremely difficult to get to the point where I am right now, being able to be on the internet and explaining my disorder and being able to explain what I can do to help other people. And how did people react when they heard you for the first time? This was my biggest fear in speaking, it was the reaction of other people. And what I had to do was go out of my way to prepare other people to hear my voice. And that can be very difficult for someone who is scared of other people's reactions. So what I did is it says that the picture is gone. Can someone tell me if they can still hear me? I'll just keep going. I had to prepare people for... Okay, I can still hear. Okay. I had to prepare people for how they might react. And I had to prepare them for... And I had to prepare them... My mom just confirmed that people can hear me. So the way that I prepared people was I did a video just like I do on YouTube and showed it to my class, explaining the disorder and explaining why I am not speaking at school. and that I'm not being defiant and I'm not being rude, but I just need understanding and support through this. And I need you to understand that one of my biggest fears is the reaction that could come with me speaking. And it would be very difficult to expect someone not to react at all when you speak for the first time, but I just ask that they would keep the reaction to a minimum. I've had people jump up and hug me, I've had people cry, I've had people just smile, but the reaction, even though it was something that I feared a lot, it wasn't something that really stopped me from continuing to progress, even though I thought that it would. I'm going to see if I can get the picture back. Okay, I hope everyone can still hear me. The next question is, how old were you when I was diagnosed? And I see that the person that asked the question was only diagnosed when she was 14. And I was actually only diagnosed when I was 14 as well. But I believe that the selective mutism started when I was in grade 7. And it only got worse and worse. So I think that it was definitely diagnosable in grade 7, but it was evident that I needed professional help once I reached high school and turned 14. The next question is, reactions in the past are what have made me regress. Do you know any way I can learn to come with them as I realize they are going to happen when I do talk? And I had to accept the fact that reactions were going to happen and that people were going to react, but what I did was I educated people more and more, and that helped people understand why I wasn't speaking and that I'm afraid of reactions. I gave them different examples of ways that they could react, but to be honest, it's very difficult. If you put yourself in their shoes and they haven't heard your voice in years or even ever, it's very difficult not to get a reaction, and it's also very difficult to accept the fact that you're going to get a reaction, because for most people with selective mutism, that is the biggest fear. But basically what I did was I made a YouTube video explaining what types of reactions were acceptable and not anxiety provoking for me personally. And I showed that to my class. And I showed them, this is what not to do, this is what to do, and this is why I'm not speaking. And I found that really helped me be able to overcome that fear to an extent where it didn't control me, but it was still there. It was still there, but it didn't control whether or not I spoke because of that. The next question is, when you were attending classes in high school, what kind of accommodations did your teachers do for you? Were you able to be verbal in the building itself? So in high school, I was completely mute in the building for the whole time I was there. And it was very difficult for my teachers and myself to come to terms with the fact that I was mute in their class. But different ways that they accommodated me were they removed the portion of, each class had a portion of speaking and listening, which included presentations and just oral group discussions, things like that. They either removed that completely for me, or if I was able to, I would record myself at home doing those things, and then I would bring it in and send it to them via email. And that way they could assess my learning without me having to actually speak to them, which I found very helpful. The next question is, do you think a person can overcome SM by themselves with no professional help? I think that a person could overcome selective mutism by themselves, but it really depends on the degree of severity. I know for me, I definitely wouldn't have been able to overcome it by myself and be where I am today without the amazing professional help that I received. But if it's not a severe form of selective mutism, I think that with the proper support, help wouldn't necessarily be needed, but with the proper help, you can definitely overcome selective mutism and get to where you want to be. The next question is there anything you wish you'd known sooner in terms of mental health? Also, I have to leave now, but thank you so much for doing this. I think you are amazing. Thank you, Emma. I think you are amazing as well. I wish that mental health was talked about in schools or just in the general community, because even 4 years ago, there has been a big jump in how much mental health is talked about. And even now, selective mutism is rarely talked about. And the people that know about it usually are affected by it themselves. I know in different countries, the amount of help available and the amount mental health is talked about varies, but here in Canada, it really frustrates me because all of our physical health care is free, whereas mental health care is all costs money. So it's more difficult for people to obtain the help that they need. But I really wish I understood mental health a lot better in ways that I could help others and help myself to have a better mental health before things got as bad as they did. So that's what I would say for that question. The next question is, sadly, I had it since I was in the 3rd grade. My teacher would yell at me because she thought I was being disrespectful. That is awful. And I think that is exactly why I'm doing this, and that is exactly why I think that selective mutism needs to be talked about more, because these people aren't being disrespectful, they're not being rude, they're not being defiant. They have an anxiety disorder that paralyzes their vocal cords, and that's really all it is. It's just a symptom of anxiety. And when I was in the hospital the past 3 weeks, one of the nurses explained to me that there are different symptoms to anxiety. You can get a stomach ache, and you can get a headache, and my symptom just happens to be that my vocal cords freeze. So really, I think that people need to understand that it's just a symptom of anxiety, and that if we treat it like the physical symptoms of anxiety, I feel like people would have a better understanding of what is happening and how they can help. Do you think there are any natural remedies you have come across that help with anxiety? I have tried many natural remedies, and my brother actually has anxiety himself, and he is not on medication, whereas I am. And he has found a lot of success in natural remedies. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the names are, because it was him that was taking them and not me. But they definitely helped him to an extent. So if you're interested in trying natural remedies, I would go see a naturopath, and they can properly prescribe the natural remedies that would be suitable for you or your child. I see that a couple people have to go, so before you go, I want to thank you for all your questions, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to express myself and answer your questions. I see that I skipped a question about whether or not I have met anyone else who has selective mutism. And the only people I've met who have had selective mutism are online. And Lizzie, if you're watching, I'm actually going to go to London, England this summer and meet someone with selective mutism. And that will be my first time ever interacting with and meeting someone who has the same condition as I do, besides my brother, of course. But selective mutism manifests itself in different ways, and my brother and I, it's manifested itself in completely different ways for the both of us. Are there any other questions about selective mutism or my experiences? I'm open to talking about anything that will help. Something that maybe others may find difficult as well is eating in front of other people. I found that a lot of people have that in common, and I found it extremely difficult to eat in front of other people while I was mute. I felt like everyone was staring at me and everyone was watching what I was eating. And it was almost like everyone was watching me. I think it had a lot to do with the social anxiety disorder and the feeling that everyone's watching you and everyone is watching what you're doing at every moment, almost like you're on stage. So if you have trouble eating in front of other people and have selective mutism, you're definitely not alone in that. When I was at my previous school with 1,200 kids, I had never been in a cafeteria because I found that way too overwhelming, and I could not eat even when I was one-on-one with other people. And the way that I overcame that is I got permission to eat in front of people. The way that I overcome that was I had the way that I overcome that was I had permission in class to eat while the lesson was going on, so everyone was focused on the lesson and not on me eating. But it can definitely manifest itself in different ways for different people, and that's what worked for me, but it won't necessarily work for everyone else. But if you can find a way to get others' attention, even though they're not paying attention to you eating, even to trick your brain into thinking that, oh, they're paying attention to this instead of paying attention to what I'm eating, it might help you overcome that. There are about 7 minutes left in this discussion. Does anyone have any other questions before the discussion ends? I'm thinking of doing this maybe twice a month, and I'd be really interested in knowing what day or which time works for most people, because I know that there are many people from many different countries here and many different time zones. So if you could let me know either on my Facebook page or a private message what times work for you guys in order for me to be able to do this again and have as many people possible, that would be great. It really took a lot of courage and strength for me to do this Q&A, and even a couple weeks ago I would never have been able to do this. But what really drives me to be able to do this is the support I get from others and knowing that I'm helping other people. Because for me, helping other people really helps me, and knowing that I can change someone's life by doing things like making a blog post or doing a Q&A really helps lower my anxiety in those situations and helps me to be able to do this. So thank you guys for your comments. Thank you. So I hope that you guys have benefited from this Q&A, and I hope to do another one really soon. Again, if you have any specific questions, or if there's a certain time that works for you guys, just message me on Facebook or comment on one of my videos, and I'll make sure to look into that request. Because I know that sometimes in the moment there are questions, you forget to say some questions and then you remember them afterwards. So if you have any questions afterwards, please do not hesitate to reach out and ask. I'm not sure why the screen is gray, but I'll look into that and hope that it doesn't go gray the next time I do this. So if that's all the questions, I'll wrap this up. Thank you everyone for attending this Q&A. It's been awesome getting to interact with all you guys and getting to hear all your questions and comments. And I hope to have another Q&A soon. So if that's all the questions, I will talk to you guys on my blog. I'll hopefully see you guys on SM Space Cafe or other Selective Mutism groups, and I'll hopefully have another Q&A as soon as possible. So thank you for watching. Bye!